So, Ros, welcome to the Art of Healing, to
Thank
our little group, and just wanted to welcome you today and find out all about you and what you do and where you come from and everything like that. Can you tell us a little about
my inner secrets.
exactly?
Where do we start? Well, okay. What's sacrosanct and what's not? Where do we draw the line? Okay. How did we come to be here? Well, I think, as I said to a lot of people recently, that one of the huge pluses of lockdown is the number of different people that I have met, and I think this is where our friendship comes from, and meeting one another is all through networking online, which has come from lockdown in essence and has thrived in lockdown. So, and I think lockdown for me has been a massive plus, because my friendship circle has just, it's worldwide, and I suspect yours is kind of the same. It's amazing the number of people that you've met from all different walks of life, and it's enhanced my life and enhanced my well-being. It's also very much changed the way I work. 3 years ago this week, we were thrown into lockdown. 3 years ago this week, I was working solely for a firm in the corporate world selling sales and office management, with a very, very large number of clients in the healthcare sector. 3 years ago this week, I was desperately trying to find face masks and health protection PPE stuff from all over the world to basically save my clients and their staff and their residents, a lot of whom were in care homes, hospitals, hospices, etc., from what we now know was COVID. At the time, nobody really knew where we were. And I think I had my busiest 2 months ever. And bearing in mind, I've been in the business for 45 years. It's a long time. And to do sort of £1 million worth of sales of just PPE, it was unheard of. The biggest shock to me was that on April the 1st, yes, April Fool's Day, I got a phone call from my boss to say that I was being furloughed. And it was like, well, how come I'm so busy? But it didn't matter. It was fine. But within 2 hours, I had no mobile phone, no company mobile phone, and no company laptop. Now, the company laptop and the company mobile phone have been part of me all my working life, because I'm not self-employed, but I am employed to look after clients, very large clients, multinational clients, on an ongoing basis. And even if I went on holiday, I used to take my work with me, but that was part of what I was paid to do. And it was like, well, okay, so now what I'm going to do? Is it 6 weeks? Is it 6 months? Nobody knew. We didn't have any idea. We just knew that we couldn't go anywhere near our work. And of course, a lot of my work, within my work, was a lot of my friends. I had, over the years, in the background, always had a holistic bias to my life. Back in 2000, I became a Reiki Master and studied Reflexology and studied Indian head massage. I'd always had a trend that way. Right back in the 80s, I went to a spiritual healing meeting, and I can remember the feeling when I walked into this woman's house, this feeling of peace and serenity and calm, like something I had never experienced before. And I went there for a very long time until I went to work abroad. I never found that feeling again until I walked into the house of a woman in the village we were living in down in the Witterings. And I walked into this woman's house, just being invited for coffee. And there was this feeling again. I didn't know anything about her. It turned out she was the woman who became my Reiki Master. I did my Reiki 1 and my Reiki 2, and then obviously went on to do my Reiki Master. She was an incredibly powerful and incredibly beautiful spirit. And I still have that feeling of her house kind of around me.
Lovely.
But I never had the courage to take my learnings for the Reiki, the Reflexology, the Indian head, and ultimately the Bach Flower Remedies through to a full-time job, because I earned a nice living. I wasn't a millionaire, and I'm still not a millionaire, and I never will be. But I earned a comfortable living. And it was like, well, okay, I'll go self-employed. And I did think about it at one point. But in the same quarter that year, my husband was made redundant. It was like, well, two self-employed people in one house with a mortgage, not a sensible idea. So I deferred it. COVID came along, furlough came along, and it was like, well, actually, what can I do? And I realised and thought about it and realised, well, I was a Bach Flower practitioner practicing, albeit part-time. I can use the remedies. I was already part of a networking group. And that was it, really. I networked my socks off. I sat in this little box in which you see me now. It's not very big. It has corporate world over there and to my right, and it has holistics here to my left and in front of me. And that was my world. And that's how I started. And I started with 3 clients, all of whom were face-to-face. They went online quickly. And I learned very fast that Zoom was not a brightly coloured lolly that had more E numbers in than we knew what to do with, but actually a very useful means of communication. And away we went. And that was it. I didn't have a website at the time. I had a Facebook page, personal one. I didn't have a business page. I didn't have a group. I didn't have anything. And in 6 months, I kind of flew by the seat of my pants, shot myself out into the world. I didn't make a lot of money because there wasn't any money. People didn't have money. But I made a lot of friends. And I spread the word about the Bach Flower Remedies, which was the only thing I could do, till I was blue in the face. That was what I used to talk. It ran through. And I think the biggest thing that spurred me on at that point in time was the fact that I went to a national Bach Flower meeting. It was international, sorry. It was a meeting of Bach Flower practitioners, and there was 170 of us in this Zoom meeting. And I'm thinking, how is this going to work? Because as far as I knew, Zoom had only been around since January. I didn't realise it'd been kicking around for time immemorial, because I'm not a techno person at all. And they managed this 170 people listening to one person or 2 people or 3 people talking. They organised breakout rooms. And then the breakout room that I was in, there were 6 of us. And I can still remember to this day, there was a woman from America, a woman from Saigon, another woman from Taiwan, rather, a woman from Singapore, there was a woman from Romania, and there was a woman from Austria.
Wow.
And me. And it was like, whoa. And they all spoke English. So, of course, first of all, that makes you feel very humble, because you realise the fact that you're actually a little bit ignorant because everybody else is speaking your language, which isn't the greatest feeling in the world. But it also made me realise there was such a common denominator, and we all had so much to give and so much to tell people, and we were all struggling with the same thing, that nobody knew what the remedies were all about. And the message we had to take out to the world, if you like, and that sounds very grand, but it was that message that it is really important to be able to tell people more about the remedies and how much they can help them. Because even having a little bottle of rescue remedy or a tin of the pastils in your house can help save distress and alarm and help ease tension and provide some peace and some calm. And that was the message we needed to promote. And that was kind of where it came from, really. And the rest is history. And I've been kicking around online ever since.
Brilliant.
I spoke to somebody who I didn't know yesterday, and she said, I heard about you a year ago, and I thought, oh my Lord.
So did the because furlough isn't redundancy, did they eventually make you redundant then from that?
Nope. They wanted me to go back 3 days a week.
Right.
And I kind of said, well, no, but I needed the money. And I realised that actually I needed to do both, so I did. And I did both up until I think the second lockdown. And in the second lockdown, we agreed, because they were going to make people redundant. I said, please don't make anyone redundant. I said, I will go. I will leave. And then you don't have to, because I'm not far off retirement age. So I will go, and then you don't have to worry about paying me. You can pay me self-employed, whatever. And now I work 7 hours a week. And the only reason I work 7 hours a week is because I've known 50% of my clients I've worked with or for the last 40 years. And it's a long time. And it's a long time to say to somebody, well, actually, I'm going. The company, it's also a huge chunk of business for the company, and the company needs the business, and they need the stability. This day and age with a recession and everything else, it's nice to have somebody in the background that you've known a long time and you want to maintain that relationship with. 7 hours a week is fine. Suits me. So holistics is this big, and the corporate world is just the way I want it.
Yeah, looks to me like that very much fills your soul. And yeah, you're enjoying that.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And I am so lucky to be able to do, and I'm sure you can resonate with this, to be able to do something that you love to do.
Yeah.
Because I think when you're not earning vast quantities of money, it is that feel-good factor.
Yeah.
That actually you can quite happily live on for a while.
Yeah.
That feeling that you've made somebody better.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a little bit of a controversial subject, because people talk about how much you should charge and what your fees should be and everything else. And I tend to kind of disappear into the background of those sorts of conversations. But if anybody ever says to me, what should you charge? What should I charge? I say, well, you charge what you feel you should charge and what you feel you can charge. At the beginning of lockdown, I had a gentleman came to our front door. We worked for a local plant nursery company. And they, because of lockdown, had fields full of plants and flowers. So they were selling them off really cheap, £10 for whatever. This gentleman came to the front door with the delivery. He was standing outside my front door with boxes of plants. Obviously, it was suitable distance, with a shirt and tie on. I know your face from somewhere. Anyway, long story short, he was the managing director of a local company, a limited company, who had now nothing to do and no business. And I gave him a business card, because I did have one then, not under the same name. And I said, if you want to talk, there's my number, phone me. And he did. And I'm so glad that he did, because he was contemplating suicide, because he had money. He was used to having a 5-figure salary at the end of the month, quite happily, quite comfortably. He had a wife and 4 children, a massive house, and no means by which to support himself or them. He came to me and he said, well, what do I owe you? I said, nothing. So when you come out the other side of this, I said, you'll think about a way to repay me. I said, right now, your thoughts are with you, your family, and getting yourself better. I have had more referrals from that gentleman than I've had from anybody else. He has repaid me 100 times over.
Lovely.
Because I saved his life. Now that might sound quite melodramatic, but by talking to me and having the remedies and seeing a different perspective on it, and seeing some roads out, he managed to help himself and get out of it. We're still in touch. Nobody knows I've helped him except him and me. And that's how it's gone. And I can never, ever repay that man, thank that man enough for what he's done for my business. And it's lovely. And I will go to my grave knowing that man's name, and he will go to his knowing what I've done, and I'm not bothered.
Mm.
But that's what I'm saying when people say to me, well, what should I charge? Charge something, whether it's a donation, and I'm sure you've been in similar situations. Whatever it is, make a donation, do something, give some money to the local dog's home, whatever, I don't mind. It doesn't have to be in hard cash, because something will come from something.
Yeah. Beautiful. Lovely. And so tell me a little bit more about the remedies themselves. What kind of things can they help with?
Oh dear, right, where did it start? Well, my introduction to the remedies came with a horse. Bless him. Yes, bless him. Dear Moonbeam was a pony that we had as a family, and my daughter's soulmate. We had him on loan for 3 years. A feisty little soul that he was, but not very easy to manage. I spoke to a lady who was actually a friend of my Reiki Master about how I could. She said, go and speak to this lady in the village. Her name was Pat Onions. She said, she's a Bach Flower practitioner. I kind of went, what? What's that? I said, well, you know about rescue remedy? I went, no. Fine, okay, lesson coming. So she ultimately gave me a bottle, like so, of remedies that we discussed, and we've talked about his symptoms, etc. And she said, go away and give it to him. Within 3 days, this little pony's behaviour had changed irreparably. It was wonderful. He was a joy to be around. He wasn't headstrong. He didn't pull. He didn't canter off halfway down the road with my daughter on the end of a lead rope. He was very sensible and calm and behaved, quiet. And I thought, oh, this is just a fluke. Anyway, finished said bottle, got to the end, left it a month, no repeat. 2 months, nothing changed. Beautiful. Like, who is this pony we haven't known for the last 3 years? He died 20 years later, and he never ever reverted to the feisty little toe rag that he was. But I knew after the 3 months that I wanted to work with these. So, welcome to the world of Dr. Bach. I did a degree introductory course 1 at the local college. I then went to Dr. Bach's house, which is where the remedies are still made, in Wallingford in Oxfordshire. They are still produced at the factory. Not the remedies themselves, but the stock essences are still produced at Dr. Bach's house. They still pick the flowers, soak them in water or boil them to produce the mother essence and the tinctures. And they then send them to a factory in Wimbledon where they produce the stock bottles that we see on the shelves and where they produce the rescue remedy. So it's still very much in a lot of ways a cottage industry. They put the essences into large 5-litre glass bottles. They're like sort of massive versions of this. And on the side of the bottle, they put a barcode, and that barcode will tell you where the flowers were picked, what time of the month they were picked, what was done with them, who picked them, all the situation. They will photograph the plants that they picked the flowers from, and all that information about that essence will actually go onto the side of that bottle and attached into that barcode. They then go down to Wimbledon. They are then, I'll show you. They then make little bottles like this. And these are the stock bottles that we have, that we work from, and you can buy these off the shelf if you need to. They also make the rescue remedy and the relevant remedies that go with it. But this bottle is preserved in alcohol, and if anyone is alcohol intolerant, we also have the tiny bottle where they are preserved in glycerin, and we use the glycerin-based remedies for children and for those people that can't take alcohol. So I would use this, for instance, with children and with animals. And obviously, if you're on medication or can't take alcohol, then we use the glycerin ones then. These are the more commonly used ones. So I then did my level 2, as I say, at the Bach Centre, which was amazing. Learned all about the remedies, all about the plants, where they grow in the local area. every single remedy, with the exception of the vine and olive remedy, is made in the UK. The stock essences for vine and olive are made in Europe, where the vine flowers are more prevalent, as you would appreciate, and the same with the olives. We don't have the right growing seasons for those two plants. But the remedies have been transformational. I worked as a kinesiologist, so I used the remedies in line with my kinesiology and my reflexology, and was able then to help people that way. And then in 2013, there was a possibility to become a practitioner. It wasn't cheap to become a practitioner. It was quite an expensive course to do, but it meant I could then earn a living out of it. And that was what I wanted to do ultimately. So off I trotted, and I worked and studied harder in 5 days to do this course than I think I've ever studied in my life. And bearing in mind, at this point in time, I was over 55. So from my brain had been like this at the age of 20, and now it was kind of getting like this. Well, A, I had to learn to remember things, and B, I had to learn to write, because it was all handwritten. So we then had to handwrite all our answers for our exams, because we did a 4-hour exam at the end. Some of it was tick box, but most of it was longhand. And then we had the best part of a year to 18 months with case studies before we were actually given the green light to go away and work properly. Because we're in a position where we can work with people who are contemplating suicide. I work, for instance, my phone number is at the Samaritans. People think that I can help. So it can be incredibly serious, incredibly sad, but incredibly fulfilling. So we're talking about, you ask about how the remedies help people. I mean, it's anything from the fear of flying to people with suicidal thoughts. It can be PMT, it can be bereavement, it can be menopausal symptoms, it can be perimenopausal, it can be overwhelm, it can be burnout, it can be anything you like. Give me a negative emotion and a negative feeling, and we will have a remedy or a selection of remedies that will help. And it's my job as a therapist to put together a selection of a maximum of 7 remedies into one of these little bottles, and pop them in a little padded bag and put them in the post. And then it's the client's job to take the remedies twice a day, every day, for the next 4 to 5 weeks. And we gradually work through and see how we go. We do that as you do with your work. You do the peeling of the onion, you take the layers away. And the beauty of it is that when they're done, they're done. And off they go, and it's bye-bye. And enjoy the rest of your life. As my first client ever said to me, and this is, I will stop then, she came to me for a fear of flying. 6 months later, she left, having divulged that her fear of flying was as a result of a fear of being sick. Her fear of being sick and that feeling of nausea came from when she was 10. She was sexually abused by her uncle. She never told another soul. She walked out of my front door on the last day that I saw her. She gave me a massive hug. She said, "Thank you for giving me the rest of my life." And that's what the remedies do. And that's how they work. And I have quite a lot of people who've had similar.
So are the remedies more based on the emotional side of the impacts of things that happen within the body? Is it linked more to emotions, or does it work on the physical layer as well?
Both. Because very often the emotions can create the physical. Unfortunately, they work in tandem. We can make people feel more positive, allow people to feel more positive, and enable them to feel more positive. Invariably, we can help them feel better. And if they are suffering physically, and we can create a more positive feeling within them, invariably the physical side will also improve. This is why Dr. Bach wanted to do it, because he knew that this controls this. And that's how to do it.
Absolutely, I'm totally in agreement with that. And so so most of your work now is done online in terms of the Bach remedies, is
All of it, yeah, all of it. I don't do any face-to-face at all.
Okay.
Unless somebody is local to me and they particularly want face-to-face, I will do it.
And so you sort of make the remedy up in terms of after having had that conversation with them. So it's not like going into, so we couldn't actually go into a shop. Well, we'd have to buy 10 of them in order to make what you're creating for us, right?
Yes. Normally what happens is during a consultation, we talk about the remedies that I'm thinking about giving them. And some people actually have some quite quick reactions to the remedies when I explain what they are. In some instances, I've had people cry because they know that it's the right remedy for them and it's really resonated with them. Others say, well, yes, whatever you think, you do. And I will then tell them the 7 remedies. I always discuss the remedies that I'm going to give them. And I discuss why I think they're appropriate and where I think they will help them and how it will work and how they will help them. And then I put them together and I blend them. I'll show you my little range. 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah.
That is my toolkit.
Oh, wow.
38 little bottles, 38 different flower essences, 38 different sets of emotions. And we talk about anything from agrimony, which is all about the person who hides their troubles behind a smile, to willow, which is for self-pity, resentment, bitterness. We have holly for anger, jealousy. We have larch for lack of confidence, gentians for impatience and frustration, red chestnut, fear and over concern for others, mimulus for fear of the known, aspen for fear of the unknown, beech for the negatively critical and arrogant person. That's an interesting one to prescribe. Little difficult to tell someone they're a little arrogant. And we have another interesting one I always find quite tricky, which is vine. And vine is the remedy that is for the vivacious and enthusiastic leader, but they often lead in a negative way.
Okay.
So becoming a leader, they're actually a dictator.
Right.
So we try and, with the vine, turn the negative dictator into the positive leader.
Wow.
So just all different sorts, yes. Star of Bethlehem for trauma, sweet chestnut, which is for deep mental anxiety and anguish, for long-term patients with serious illnesses, mustard for those people that become depressed and out of the blue and actually think they've got no reason to be depressed and suddenly find themselves feeling low for no apparent reason. Yeah, and so the list goes on. There's 38 of them.
Is there anything for grief?
Combine the grief with sweet chestnut, Star of Bethlehem, which is for trauma, pine for guilt, which often comes in with the grief, gorse for despair and despondency. Sometimes with grief, people can be overwhelmed by their emotions if they're not accustomed to being emotionally affected by things. So we would use elm, all those sorts of things. Walnut for change. So it's probably a combination of 7 remedies that we can use to help with grief.
Amazing. Sounds brilliant.
That's what we do. Not one specific. It's a bit like saying somebody said to me, can you give me a remedy for stress? Well, yes, but you need to tell me what type of stress. Lots of questions to ask.
So going into your, I presume you kind of combine, how much work do you do in terms of hands-on nowadays? Do you, because I know you said you do reflexology, a Reiki Master and everything. Well, I know literally today your hand is in a cast, so you
nothing at the moment. I have reduced the number of clients that I see face to face. That came as a result of COVID. I probably see 7 or 8 people over a period of a month. So that's regular. My daughter, we've done a bit of a role reversal. My daughter used to have a treatment room at home, and I used to work from home using the treatment room. But as a result of COVID, that had to stop. So she put a cabin and studio in the bottom of her garden, which is lovely, and I go there and work from there. So I see no more than 7 or 8, and it suits me because my family are all quite vulnerable, and I need to be a bit careful. So COVID kind of brought that home a little bit. So I kind of inadvertently shrunk my face-to-face business. It suits me down to the ground.
Yeah.
I miss it, but I don't, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I feel as if I can do a lot more with the remedies.
That's great. And do you use remedies yourself?
All the time. That's mine.
Oh.
All the time.
Do you have?
I have the box.
Okay. Do you self-diagnose though? What if another practitioner would look at you in a different light? Because I mean, some of it is, perception of others, isn't it? And how you perceive somebody might be different to how another Bach Flower Remedy person would perceive somebody.
There's an element of self-diagnosis, but I do actually work with somebody else. Do you know Sophie Dyer?
Yes.
Well, I've had her card readings, and her readings have actually helped me to diagnose and put remedies together from her readings.
Oh, wow.
And actually, it's been very interesting because they brought up things that I would never have put down for me. And I've actually had a situation whereby, yes, the beach remedy, the negatively critical remedy came up for me, because that was being applying that criticism in a negative way towards my daughter and feeling negatively critical. And I needed to tweak it because it made me feel better once I tweaked it.
Good.
So those sorts of things can come in. And I, for instance, don't think of myself as being overly protective.
Right.
It came up that yes, I was, and we have a remedy for fear and over concern for others.
Yeah.
It's all very well, but invariably that's at the detriment of yourself.
Yeah.
So it's quite useful. So once every 2 or 3 months we have a natter. And then if I'm feeling particularly anxious, it's like now I am taking a remedy which contains impatiens for the frustration. I'm also taking hornbeam, which is for procrastination. I'm taking Serato, which is the ability to say no. A bit appropriate, really, because I need to say no at the moment because I need not to do too much. And it's that ability. Also, the Griminy is another one. I'm really, really good at people asking me how I am, and I say I'm absolutely fine, thank you. And actually, inside, I might be feeling really rubbish.
Yeah.
And again, I'm taking that at the moment so that I'm able to actually tell people how I'm feeling. Not all of it, but just to get some of it out of the system. Otherwise, it gets in here.
So that leads me on very nicely. I'll take the prompt there, because one of the questions that I do like to ask people on this interview is to say, how are you? Because I feel, well, I know from my own experience, suppressing my own emotions, not allowing myself to feel, cause me discomfort and dis-ease within my body. So I'm always now trying to encourage people to feel their emotions and really and when I ask people, how are you, I don't it doesn't need to have the story of how you are. So an emotion is just an emotion, and so I just, when I work with people, I gently try and get them to to just be with the emotion. What emotion arises for you in this moment, and not to question or judge it or to comment on it or to critique it, or just to allow, because right now there might be, within me, I feel like, oh yeah, there's a bit of rage there. But that's okay. I don't know why it's there, what it's there for. So my question to you is, how do you feel?
Frustrated, but relieved. Frustrated because I can't do things, but relieved because the pain that I'm in is nowhere near the extent of the pain that I was in prior to the operation.
Good.
So in essence, there is a massive sense of relief. Because I knew when I went into the theatre exactly what I was going to go through when I came out, because I've had the same op done on this hand.
Okay.
So I knew I was heading. But yes, not one that asks for help easily.
No.
So yeah, but it's coming. And it's fine. It will be fine.
How does it feel to ask for help?
Now, a lot easier than it used to be. I wouldn't ask for help. I would struggle to the nth degree. But now I do. I will do as much as I can, because I believe I still need to keep moving and still need to keep doing. I need help. With me.
And isn't it lovely when you get that help returned to you?
I have to also to remember that my husband's had some surgery in the past, quite serious surgery. And I've always said to him, you need to do as the doctor says. He used to get quite cross when he didn't. Now it's a case of, well, actually, you need to remember what you've practice, what you preach. So yeah, and I think that actually is quite nice, really. It's quite a nice feeling if you can remember that, well, I can sit in the chair, and if I go to sleep, it really doesn't matter. And if I can't get up and do anything, I know that I don't have to apologize for it or explain why or anything else, because I know he understands. Yeah. And that's the beauty of the relationship. So I think when you live with someone who you can understand, and when you're married to someone like that, then that does help. So there we go. My biggest frustration at the moment is I can't find somebody to come and manicure my fingers.
Okay.
There isn't a manicure
out there.
Well, there we go. There isn't a beautician in the area that doesn't want to come and plaster gel all over my nails, and I don't want gel nails. I just want someone to come and trim my fingernails and put some varnish on, please. I don't find anybody that don't do it.
Well, maybe you'll have to ask a friend to do that.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you would like to say or talk about?
I don't think so, but it's lovely to talk to someone that comes from that same sort of ethos of kindness and understanding, and not have that feeling of the fact that you're talking about woo. You're just actually talking about the benefit of making however you do it. And it's really, really nice to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful to you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I'm sure that a lot of your clients and all of your clients are very grateful for what you have done for them. And so sometimes we need to have that fed back to us, don't we? And just be appreciated and given the opportunity, because you do great work, and it should be shared with other people. Is there a way that people can contact you? What's your preferred way for people to contact you if they wish?
I have a Facebook page. I have a website. It really, matter either way, it'll get through to me.
Okay.
I think that I would also just like to say that the remedies not only work for the adults, they work for children as well, and they work for animals. And if you think that perhaps you can't stretch to a bottle of blended remedies, I quite understand that fact. But if there is anxiety in the house, please, Amazon, Boots, Tesco's, anywhere on the high street, health food shop, get yourself some rescue remedy, be it the bottles or be it the drops. You're halfway to calming yourself.
Fabulous. Thank you very much for coming along and chatting today, Ros.
Very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Story. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much.